There's a certain kind of conversation that feels like it belongs to a specific moment in history, and yet somehow refuses to stay there, like it echoes forward, changing its language a little, changing its surface details, but keeping the same emotional core. And that's exactly what I keep noticing when I settle into All in the Family and let one of those long, layered living room arguments unfold, especially when the focus turns toward generational conflict. That quiet but constant friction between what was and what's trying to be. And there's one kind of episode, or really one kind of recurring situation, that captures this perfectly, where the tension isn't sparked by anything dramatic. No sudden event, no shocking reveal, just a conversation that drifts into deeper territory, like it always seems to do in that house. And this time it starts with something as simple as how people see the future, how they imagine life should look 10 years from now. Archie is already settled into his chair, the space that feels like his anchor, his place of certainty, and he's talking about stability, about how things used to be clearer, more structured, more predictable. And he doesn't say it like a complaint at first, more like a statement of fact, something that doesn't need to be questioned. But Mike hears it, and you can almost feel the shift before he even responds, because to him, that idea of stability sounds less like comfort and more like limitation, less like something to preserve and more like something to challenge. And when he speaks, it's not just disagreement, it's a different vision entirely. He talks about change, about opportunity, about breaking out of patterns that don't serve everyone equally. And suddenly the room feels smaller, like those two perspectives can't fully exist together without friction. Gloria is right there, feeling it from both sides, because she understands her father's attachment to what feels familiar. But she also feels the pull of something new, something that promises more freedom, more choice, and her reactions carry that tension, that sense of being caught between two ways of seeing the world. And then there's who listens, really listens, in a way that feels almost grounding, like she's holding the emotional center of the room together even as the conversation starts to stretch and strain. And when she speaks, it's not to win or to prove anything, it's to connect, to remind everyone that beneath all these ideas, there are people who care about each other. What makes this kind of scene so powerful is that nothing is reduced to a clear right or wrong. Instead, the conversation becomes this layered exchange where each perspective carries its own weight, its own logic, its own emotion. Archie's worldview, shaped by his experiences, by the era he grew up in, isn't just stubbornness for the sake of it. It's a way of making sense of a world that feels like it's changing too fast, and his resistance comes from a place of wanting to hold onto something solid. Mike's perspective, on the other hand, comes from a belief that the world can and should be better, that those old structures don't work for everyone. And his insistence on challenging Archie isn't just about winning an argument. It's about pushing towards something he believes is more just. And Gloria, moving between those viewpoints, brings in the emotional reality of living within that divide, of trying to reconcile love and disagreement at the same time. The living room itself plays such a crucial role in all of this, because it keeps everything contained, focused, intimate, There's no escape from the conversation, no way to step back and reset. It just keeps going, building and shifting and circling back. And that's where the show's approach to comedy really stands out, because the humor doesn't come from neatly timed jokes. It comes from the tension itself, from the way these characters interact, from the way they misunderstand each other and then try again. You might laugh at Archie's certainty, at the way he expresses his views as if they're obvious, and then you might laugh at Mike's reactions, at the way he tries to dismantle those views, sometimes with sharp precision, sometimes with visible frustration. Gloria's responses add another layer, often more emotional, more immediate, and gentle presence creates moments of warmth that feel like small pauses in the middle of something heavier. But that laughter is never separate from the discomfort. It exists alongside it, sometimes because of it. And that's what made All in the Family so groundbreaking when it first aired in the early 1970s. This was a time when America was going through significant cultural shifts. Conversations about civil rights, gender roles, generational identity, all becoming more visible, more urgent. And the show brought those conversations into the home in a way that felt raw and immediate. Instead of presenting polished, resolved stories, it showed the messiness of real discussion, the way people talk over each other, the way they repeat themselves, the way they struggle to understand perspectives that feel completely foreign to them. And that generational conflict, that sense of one era pushing against another, wasn't treated as something to be solved in a single episode. It was treated as an ongoing reality, something that would continue, evolve, resurface. As the conversation in this kind of scene unfolds, you start to notice how it doesn't move toward a conclusion. It moves in waves, rising and falling, sometimes intensifying, sometimes softening, but never fully resolving. There might be a moment where Archie pauses, where something Mike says seems to land, even if just for a second, and in that pause you can almost feel the possibility of change. But then the moment passes, and Archie returns to his familiar perspective, not because he's unwilling to listen, but because his understanding of the world is deeply rooted, tied to his identity. And that's where the show feels so honest, because it doesn't pretend that one conversation can undo years of belief. It shows how change, when it happens at all, is slow, uneven, often incomplete. This role becomes even more important in these moments, because she offers a different kind of response, one that isn't about argument but about empathy, about seeing people as more than their opinions. Her kindness doesn't resolve the conflict, but it changes the tone. It creates space for the characters to step back, to breathe, to remember that they're more than just opposing viewpoints. And as the scene begins to wind down, there's no clear winner, no definitive answer, just a gradual easing of tension, a return to something quieter, something more familiar. But the conflict doesn't disappear, it lingers. It becomes part of the ongoing dynamic, something that will surface again in another conversation, another moment. Watching it now, you can still feel how relevant it is, because generational conflict hasn't gone away. It's just taken on new forms, new language, but the core experience remains the same. The feeling of trying to explain your perspective to someone who sees the world completely differently, the frustration of not being fully understood, the challenge of balancing respect and disagreement, all of that is still there. And that's why the show continues to resonate, because it captures something fundamental about human interaction, about the way people navigate difference. It doesn't offer easy answers. It doesn't simplify the conflict. It lets it exist in all its complexity. And in doing so, it creates a kind of authenticity that's hard to ignore. As the living room grows quiet again, as the characters settle back into their routines, there's a sense that nothing has been resolved, and yet something has been expressed, something has been explored. And maybe that's the point, not to solve the conflict, but to show it, to let it unfold in a way that feels real, that feels true to the characters and the world they live in. So when you step back and think about it, about how these conversations reflect the tensions of 1970s America and still feel relevant today, it becomes clear that All in the Family wasn't just capturing a moment in time. It was capturing a pattern, something that continues, something that evolves but never fully disappears. And sitting with that, letting it settle, you realize that what you've been watching isn't just a sitcom. It's a kind of ongoing dialogue, one that invites you to listen, to reflect, to recognize those same dynamics in your own life. And when it ends, it doesn't feel like an ending. It feels like a pause, like the conversation is still happening somewhere, still shaped by those same differences, still waiting to continue.